Hey, Shalom Akim, Yahbashim Yahushua Barakatab. First off, I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Once again, I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Send double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to all you brothers out there pushing His word in sincerity and truth. And this is a video, just an informational video I just wanted to do real quick concerning Edom, concerning the relationship geopolitically that the nation of Israel and the nation of Edom has had over the course of the generations. And while you read here in Amos the 9th chapter, the 12th verse, it says that they may possess the remnant of Edom. I just wanted to touch in on that. Apostle Ramlab did a video concerning this scripture, and he explained how this possession is talking about the lands. I just wanted to go and touch in on some reasons why it's talking about that. And Lord willing, this is edifying. Of course, if you brothers have comments or any points, please place them in the comment board. Now, when you look at the blessing that was given to Jacob, that was supposed to go to Esau initially, but the Spirit had it to where it fell on Jacob. Esau lost access to a promise. That promise was basically lands and rights and ownership and inheritance and governance over a region, you know. And this region is the nation of Israel, that whole land area, and it's prime territory because it's the epicenter of everything that was going on in the known world at that time. But Esau did not see that promise to be fulfilled. He's like, what am I gonna do with this? There's no way we're gonna basically have those lands or whatever. But, turns out Israel ends up getting into those lands, the land of Canaan. And we all know those scriptures, okay? So when you read here, Genesis 27:37, it says, And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy Lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break this yoke from off thy neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. Okay, so because the blessing that Esau felt like he was supposed to get because he was the firstborn, he didn't receive that blessing, and instead he received rights to a small portion of land. A land that was considered to have fatness. Okay, so you look up that word, fatness. Let's go to it. Why not? Mashamam. It says fatness, fat, peace, fertile place, richly prepared food, fatness. So oil, olive oil, fatness, stout, vigorous, fertile posts or places. Now, when you look at the kingdom of Esau, let's go to some of these maps, right? So right here you have the kingdom of Israel, kingdom of Judah, kingdom of Edom. Now, if you understand trade, this area here was a major trade route area, man. So all of these Arab nations and Moabites, Ammonites, and other people would come down. The Syrians would come and trade with the kingdom of Egypt throughout these lands, okay? Now, what happened? King David expanded the known kingdom at that time, man. It was underneath King David to where the true fullness of the nation of Israel, which encompasses these lands, were magnified. So the borders of the nation of Israel were magnified. All right. So basically, King David's conquest went and took down the Moabites. He made deals with the Syrians. All right. We know, we understand. We got the cedar trees and everything like that. And then it came down and took an area which was known as the King's Highway, ran right through here. All right. And so this is where you have the battle of the Valley of Salt. Okay. I want to read some of these things. When you go down to the battle of the Valley of Salt. All right. I'll just look at this real quick. This is just a map I pulled up. You know, it says Kingdom of David. David fulfills land promise in Genesis 15 and 18. Matter of fact, let's get that. Genesis 15. All right. Genesis 15 and 18 says, "On the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land from the river of Egypt unto the great river Euphrates." Okay? It says the Kenites, the Kenites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. All of those people who possessed those lands in that region at that time. Okay? So you see the expansion that had to occur to go down to this river here. It had to dig down into this land, this portion of land that Edom dwelt in. Okay? And so what did that make happen? That made even more battles happen. Okay? So I just wanted to go into some information, you know, just to touch in on these things. Let's go here first. Now, when you look on BibleAtlas.org, Valley of Salt, it says the scene of battles, firstly between David or his lieutenant Abishai and the Edomites. You can go to these scriptures and read about those battles. And in this psalm, which when you read the beginning of Psalm 60, it talks about how he goes into the Valley of Salt. And later between Amaziah and these same foes. All right. So then, you know, later on, Amaziah is one of the chief men. Also, Jehoshaphat, and they were battling the Edomites. Okay, we're gonna read about some of those things and the reasons why. It says it is tempting to connect this Valley of Salt with Shibka, the marshy, salt-impregnated plain, which extends from the southern end of the Dead Sea to the foot of the cliffs, but in its present condition, it is almost impossible place for a battle of any sort. The ground is so soft and spongy that a wide detour around the edges has to be made by those wishing to get from one side to the other. It is too highly probable that in either times the whole of this low-lying area was covered by the waters of the Dead Sea. It is far more natural to identify Yehamalak with the Wadi El Mitch, one of the three valleys which unite Beersheba to form the Wadi Seba. These valleys, El Milch and El Seba, together make a natural frontier to Canaan. All right. And so these areas were very, very hard fought. Okay, very hard fought to get down into these regions. Why was those regions so important? Well, let's read about it. Okay, you go to the Jewish virtual library and type in Edom, and you can read about all this. It's very interesting information for you brothers that want to go to it. You know, get out what you want. I'm gonna start right here underneath the subsection, the period of monarchy. Down in this last paragraph, it says, during this period of chiefs and kings, Edom was strong and its borders well fortified by a series of border fortresses which prevented the penetration of nomadic tribes from the desert. A series of fortresses was discovered during an archaeological survey in eastern and southern Edom. More proof that these are real nations with real people. The Egyptians talk about the Edomites. The Syrians talk about the Edomite kingdoms and the pacts and the wars that they had. All right. We'll get into some of those things, Lord willing, in this lesson. All right. It says, A series of fortresses was discovered during an archaeological survey in eastern and southern Edom, and some also in western Edom. In the north, Edom shared a common border with Moab, with which it apparently had close and good neighborly relationships. They were trade partners. There's almost no biblical information in regard to contacts between Israel and Edom during this period, except that Edom is listed among the nations oppressing Israel, which Saul defeated at the end of this period. Go to 1 Samuel 14:47. It is possible that this refers to Amalek, which is related to Edom. Okay, so Psalms 83, which is assumed to be from the period of the Judges, Edom, as well as Amalek and Gebal, which belonged to Edom, because Edom was broken up into different tribes and kingdoms too. So sometimes certain sectors would be individualized. I'll put it like that. All right. Just as our 12 tribes looked at themselves as individual sovereign nations too. All right. King David came in and basically had Judah running the whole 12 tribes, and they chose him as the king. All right. And underneath his authority, there was great expansion and victories in combat and war. All right. To where they got those promised lands that was told to Abraham. Okay. It says, is also mentioned as joining with Israel's other neighbors against against Israel. It appears, however, that these two mentions are schematic, and it's difficult to arrive at historically valid conclusions from the appearance of Edom in these lists. Okay, it says from David until destruction of Judah. All right. In David's wars of expansion, Edom was conquered after a decisive defeat in the Valley of Salt. This is echoed in 3 biblical sources, actually 3 accounts of the same battle. According to 2 Samuel 8:13, it was David who defeated Edom. It says this should be read instead of Aram. See, the scholars know, because when you look at the word Edom and you look at the word Aram, it can be confused. The Da and the Ra are easy to mistake if it's not written properly. Okay. It says so when you go to the scripture and you see that word Aram, just know it's Edom. Okay, Akyam. It says, do I have that pulled up? Yeah, 2 Samuel 8:13. And David got him a name when he returned from smiting of the Syrians. This is the Edomites in the Valley of Salt, being 18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all they of Edom became David's servants. And the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. And David ruled over the Edomites harshly. He went and he had told Joab to slay all the men. So they took down all their governing bodies, all the head and the chiefs were taken down. And there's an account in the scriptures of one of the chiefs fleeing to Egypt. He was a little bitty baby during the time of this takedown. All right. And one of them fled to Egypt, all right, and got riches and lands during the time of David's rule and during the time of Solomon's rule. But toward the end of Solomon's rule, all right, basically this guy comes back. I'll get the scripture. We'll find it and we'll read about it so you can know what I'm talking about. All right. I want to come back to this and just continue to read. It says, according to 1 Chronicles 18:12, Abishai, son of Zeruiah, slew 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt, while according to Psalm 60, it was Joab who defeated Edom, and there was a different number given for Edomite casualties, 12,000. While a few scholars held that these accounts of battles led by different people mentioned, it appears that they are in fact different accounts of the same event, and the numbers are schematic. All right, so different people wrote the information they had. Okay, it says you gotta remember that the Bible is books that were written. Okay, in any event, in order to clarify the historical aspect, it appears that the original historical version is that Joab defeated Edom. The introduction of Abishai in the Chronicles is aimed against Joab, and is based on the wars in eastern Transjordan, in which Joab and Abishai led the armies. The war was attributed to David because it appears that the victories of Joab, his military commander, were credited to King David. And you see the same thing with Jonathan. Jonathan was defeating people, and the credit was given to Saul, his dad. Okay, the king. It says David, as was the case in the defeat of Rabba ben Ammon, then it gives the source. Edom suffered a decisive defeat, apparently after a difficult battle. Contrary to his custom with regard to the other nations of Transjordan, David did not leave the Edomite monarchy in power, but made Edom into an Israelite province ruled by appointed governors. Okay? We can get that. Let me see. Well, you know what? It was right there anyway. And David reigned over all. He put garrisons in Edom, and throughout all Edom he put the garrisons. Okay? And we read that. Alright, let's see. There is additional information about this battle in 1 Kings 11:15-16, which states that for 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel until he had cut off every male in Edom. His reasons for turning Edom into a province which rendered tribute and was ruled by governors were probably primarily economic, since Edom controlled the trade routes both overland, the King's Highway, and maritime, the port of Ezion-Geber Elath. Alright, so this is why a different stance was taken. It had to be expanded so they can control those trade routes, as was promised back to Israel by Isaac, and as was promised to Abraham. Okay, they have to take over those regions of Edom, the remnant of their lands. Okay, and we are gonna and basically after King Solomon went down, man, when we were scattered, the pact that they basically they was, history says that Esau, basically Edom, was coming into Jerusalem and making pacts with us, saying we're gonna help y'all against these Babylonians, blah blah blah. Turns out when the battle goes down, Edom is on the other side with the Babylonians running through the city. Okay, so I'm gonna keep reading though. There's some good info in here. It says Israel's rule of Edom by means of governors lasted throughout David's reign, and apparently also through most of Solomon's time until Hadad, a descendant of the last Edomite king, rebelled against Solomon. It is difficult to determine whether Hadad was the son or grandson of the last king of Edom. Actually, this was the introduction of a dynastic monarchy in Edom. Then this one guy is, in the opinion of Edward Meyer, the Edomites were loyal to their last king. This Hadad, who fled to Egypt during the conquest of Edom, received personal aid and political support in Egypt and returned to Edom after David's death. Okay, let's read that. 1 Kings 11:4. It says, "For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his power, and his heart and as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and went not fully after Yahweh as David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise he did for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed to their gods. And Yahweh was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from Yahweh, of the power of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice." This is the reason why the Most High was mad. They weren't mad because he had the wives. They were mad because of the worship of these abominable idols. Okay, you see, King David didn't play all that. He would destroy all the strange ways of the heathens around about, man. King Solomon had a more diplomatic relationship with the heathens round about. All right. And we ain't gonna be diplomatic with these people. We're gonna dictate. All right. We're gonna have supreme authority over the other nations once Yahushua returns. Okay. Let's read down in verse 10. It says, "And had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Most High commanded. Therefore the Lord said unto Solomon, For as much as this is done of thee, thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. Howbeit I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to my son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen." Because he made a promise. All right. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon. So he stirred up an adversary, and let's see who that adversary gonna be. Hadad the Edomite. He was the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass, when David was in Edom, and Joab the captain of hosts was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom, for 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom. Why? They wanted to control that region. That Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, to go into Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. And they arose out of Midian, and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, which gave him an house, and appointed him victuals, and gave him land. All right. And Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh. So he was balling over there in Egypt, winning. So they gave him, and so that he gave him to wife the sister of his own wife, the sister of Thiphanes the queen. All right. Now I'll give you a context clue so you can get the dates. It says, the sister of Thiphanes bare him Genubath his son, whom Thiphanes weaned in Pharaoh's house. All right, so living lavish. And Genubath was in Pharaoh's household among the sons of Pharaoh. And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers, and that Joab the captain of the host was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, "Let me depart, that I may go to mine own country." Then Pharaoh said unto him, "But what hast thou lacked with me, that behold thou seekest to go to thine own country?" And he answered, "Nothing. Howbeit let me go in any wise." All right. So this is how much hate he got for the nation of Israel. And the Most High stirred him up another adversary, Rezon the son of Eliadeth, which fled from his lord Hadadezer king of Zobath. Okay, so this is over there in Assyria. And he gathered men unto them who became captain over a band when David slew them of Zobath, and they went to Damascus and dwelt therein and reigned in Damascus. Okay, and he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon. So basically, as Solomon was doing his thing, they behind the scenes trying to get shit together, trying to build up, what they need to build up to come against the nation of Israel. Of course, they're still having trades, and they're still having deals and pacts, and they're still under the authority of the kingdom of Israel. Because of King David's expansion, they still had these areas under subjection and rule. But behind the scenes, because of the wickedness that Solomon did, the Most High gave it way for these people to prepare to fight against the nation of Israel. Okay? So it says, and he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon. Beside the mischief that Hadad did, he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. Okay? And so you brothers can go and read that, more in 1 Kings here in 1 Kings the 11th chapter if you wish. I'm going to continue on right here in this section. I remember this section is called what did I type? I just typed in Edom, and then I went and I just typed in David, and it gave me all these instances here that we're reading now. Okay, so skipping back down to to here. It says, according to the Septuagint, what is said about Aram in 1 Kings 11:25 refers to Edom. And it thus turns out that Hadad rebelled at the beginning of Solomon's reign and ruled Edom. It is difficult to accept this version, however, since it would mean that at the beginning of his reign, a time of prosperity and growth of the development of Negev and Arabah and of the maritime and inland trade, Solomon did not have absolute control over Edom and over the routes which crossed its territory. It would therefore appear that Edom's liberation was possible only at the end of Solomon's reign. And we read about that when Solomon was in his old age. That's when this stuff started to really begin to happen. Okay? Alright, from Jehoshaphat to Ahaz. There is no information about Edom from the end of Solomon's reign until Jehoshaphat's. Either from the Bible or from other sources, it may be assumed that after the collapse of Solomon's kingdom and its division, and especially after Shishak's campaign in Judah and Israel, Edom finally overthrew the yoke of Israel's rule and established an independent kingdom which lasted around 50 years until the time of Jehoshaphat. With the expansion of Judah southward in the time of Jehoshaphat, the submission of the Arabian tribes, right, 2 Chronicles 17:11, and the institution of a mercantile fleet at Ezion-Geber, Edom was probably conquered. In fact, there is an explicit statement in this regard from which it can be understood that not only was Edom conquered by Jehoshaphat, but he dealt with it as did David, and turned it into a province ruled by governors. Chronicles writes in connection with Jehoshaphat that there was no king in Edom, a deputy was king. The conquest of Edom, and that was in 1 Kings 22 and 48. The conquest of Edom probably stemmed from the same economic motivations which existed at the time of David and Solomon. Edom became the subject of Judah, and during the period of subjection, the king of Edom, probably the deputy mentioned above, joined the campaign of Joram, king of Israel, and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, against Mesha, the rebellious king of Moab, which passed through the wilderness of Edom, 2 Kings 3 and 8. The participation of the king of Edom angered the king of Moab, who attempted first and foremost to break through opposite the king of Edom. The failure of this campaign led to the weakening of the rule of Judah and Israel in eastern Transjordan, as well as Judah's rule in Edom. It is explicitly stated that during the time of Joram, Edom rebelled against Judah. In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. 2 Kings 8 and 20. Joram attempted at the beginning of his reign to reinstate Israel's hegemony over Edom in the Great Campaign, including all the chariots, which apparently failed. It says, and Edom was completely liberated from the dominion of Judah. Edom maintained its independence for about 60 years until the middle of Amaziah's reign. At the time of Amaziah, Judah recovered from the pressure of Aram, to which it paid heavy taxes. This recovery is expressed in the undertaking of a military campaign against Edom in order to renew the rule of Israel there. It is said that Amaziah that he slew of Edom in the valley of Salt 10,000 and took Selah by war and called the name of it Jekothiel until this day. All right, and that's back in let's go to that. 2 Kings 14. Second Kings 14 and 7. And he slew of Edom in the valley of Salt 10,000 and took Selah by war and called the name of it Joktheel until this day. I want to go and I want to look up this word. Yaquathala. The blessedness of the Most High. The blessedness of of the power, a city in the low country of Judah named next to Lachish, the name given to the cliff which was the stronghold of Edom by King Amaziah after capturing it, also called Selah and Petra. So boom, it's all about controlling those lands. This is a perpetual battle from generation to generation to control the fatness of the earth. Those lands that everywhere everything is moving, okay? It's a very important region, okay? The seed of Edom is going to be removed completely off the face of the earth. Why? Because they are the seed of the wicked. Wickedness, there won't be any necessary for the seed of the wicked to be a functioning part of the kingdom of heaven on the planet earth. So they're going to be eliminated once all the work is done. They're going to serve their captivity, and then that line of Edom is going to be removed as pertaining to the scripture. Okay? I'm just giving a geopolitical background so you can understand how those lands were important and how there was always a battle for portions and regions in that area. Okay? Let's go back. Amaziah, like Joab, treated the Edomites with cruelty, as is recounted in 2 Chronicles 25:11-12. And Amaziah smote 10,000 men of Seir. The men of Judah captured another 10,000 alive and took them to the top of a rock and threw them down from the top of the rock, and they were all dashed to pieces. It seems that the changing of Selah's name can be interpreted not only as a symbol of renewed dominion, but perhaps also the introduction of Judahite settlers in the new important town, Geopolitical, which, on account of its geographic conditions, its distinctly strategic location, its proximity to the capital Basra, which lay south of it, and its control over the approach to the mines of Arabah, was subject to a violent controversy between Israel and Edom. Okay? With the conquest of Selah, Amaziah assured Judah of control over northern Edom and the copper mines of Punan area. So they had a remnant. They had controlled a portion of Edom, a portion of the lands Israel had and controlled. But because of our wickedness, we will lose that. But the scripture says we're going to get it back, okay? We're going to get all of that back as concerning the promise. The promise is concerning the promised land, all right? It's just true. Now, it appears that Uzziah, son of Amaziah, completed his father's activity conquering Edom. Uzziah, who expanded his kingdom in the direction of south, and Negev, built Elath and restored it to Judah. This was the climax of his activity in Negev and Arabah in developing agriculture, industry, and commerce. Okay, which has been confirmed by archaeological excavations and surveys. Okay, so there's tons of information on this. You brothers can continue to read. I just wanted to bring out those points. Okay, I wanted to bring out those points because when you see how these nations are all up against each other, all right. This is the Israel going down to Judah, and it says Israel during King David's rule. And you see right here the King's Highway, all right, that goes and flows all the way down. You got the Salt Sea and this whole valley. And so, and the Philistines were here. King, about King Solomon's dealing with them and trade, all right, and how it was expanded all the way down through this region, all the way down here. Kingdom was expanded, okay? You look here, this is giving you kind of a map of King David's rule and what we were promised. I'm gonna read a little bit on this. It says, David, Israel's second king and the Most High's appointed king, ruled first over Judah only and made his capital at Hebron. After a little over 7 years, the other tribes asked him to rule over them as well. It was at this time, you see how they looked at themselves as sovereign entities and nations? All right. It was at this time that he united the tribes and made Jerusalem his new capital. When David danced, okay? He gave them a well-organized central government and law and national consciousness and an individual identity. The kingdom of Israel was established and in control of David and his mighty army. If there was any sort of problems on foreign soil, David's army was in position to wage war. There were many such wars, and the Most High was with him, and King David built what may be accurately be referred to as an empire. David's kingdom was not necessarily a military government as it was with King Saul. Although David made many more conquests than King Saul, although David was a man of war, the strength of his rule did not depend on military victories. Besides being a military leader, David was also a statesman, and his government was well organized and staffed. His army under Joab or himself was rarely, if ever, defeated. The result was that his borders were continually enlarged during an empire until an empire was formed. All right, it's the extent of David's kingdom. King David's military victories were quite impressive and magnified his authority and the boundaries of Israel. The kingdom included all of the land originally allotted to the 12 tribes of Israel, except a small portion of the Philistia along the southern Mediterranean coast, and also the kingdom of Ammon. All right. Vassal states. Certain nations were allowed to keep their own kings. These were called vassal states. These included Moab and Edom. And Edom didn't keep a king. They just had appointed deputies, as the scriptures talk about. And Edom and the Damascus territory. Zobah was most likely included as well, but this is not conclusive. There was also a territory even farther north called Hamath, which acknowledged Israel's sovereignty and submitted to David's authority. Hamath's territory stretched northeast of the Euphrates River. Okay? So, over here. Okay? Let's see. King David's authority reached as far as the Euphrates River in the north, all the way down to the Gulf of Aqaba and the River of Egypt, 45 miles south of Gaza. It is disputed whether or not this or the Nile River is the river of Egypt mentioned in the Lord's promise to their ancestor Abraham and their descendants over 800 years earlier. We read that scripture earlier. Israel was not to be compared to the other empires at that time. All right. It says Moab and Edom. David's kingdom had its first major war with Moab. 2 Samuel 8:2. Talks about then he defeated Moab, forcing them down to the ground, and he measured them off with a line. With 2 lines he measured off those to be put to death, and with 1 line those to be kept alive. So the Moabites became David's servants and brought tribute. It is interesting, while David was a fugitive, the people of Moab were friendly with him and offered him and his family refuge. David was a servant of the Lord, and it was the Most High's will that Moab become a vassal state with their own king and paying tribute. Afterward, David defeated Edom. We read about that. There is not a lot of detail about this war, but it occurred in the Valley of Salt, according to 2 Kings 14:7, and there was severe slaughter. According to 1 Kings 11:15 through 18, Joab had to slay every male soldier in Edom, including the royal household. Only Hadad and a few other servants escaped. A garrison was left to maintain control, and Edom was made a vassal state to Israel. Defeating Moab and Edom gave David sovereignty on the east and southeast sides of the Dead Sea, including a portion of the King's Highway leading to the Gulf of Aqaba, an important water route for trade. Okay, so I'm just highlighting the wars that we've had with Edom. With critical part of it is the portions of the land. All right. When you go back and you read it in history, it pops out at you evidently, as the case, man. When you first read in let's go to Amos 1. When you first read here in Amos 1:9, thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they have delivered up the whole captivity to Edom, and remember not the brotherly covenant, because Tyrus was in trades with King Solomon, and they went back on the covenant and bounds that we had. together. Okay, it says, and I will send a fire on the wall of Tyrus, which shall devour the palaces thereof. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. But I will send fire upon Teman, and I will devour the places of Basra. Okay, so the Most High is got a devastating destruction prepared for the nation of Esau and for the nation of Edom, and it's all throughout the scriptures, man. But Esau as an entity is going to be completely wiped out after they serve their purpose. The line of wickedness, that line of rebellion, the perpetual hatred is going to be removed from the planet Earth. Okay, completely. And we're going to control those lands and take those important passageways through the epicenter of the planet, which is Jerusalem, which is that whole land, that whole region. This right here is a heartbeat of the planet Earth, man. And that's why it's always perpetual war in this region, even until this day. And this is why even we had Trump go over to the state of Israel today, and they're making pacts and plans, man. They're trying to reestablish this same thing underneath the Edomite control. Okay? Underneath the Edomite control. But the Most High is going to have them kill themselves, man, in World War III. And we're going to praise his holy name. Okay? So I just wanted to read through that, man. There's more I could do, but, you brothers have the sources now, so I'm sure you're going to have at it. So, our Lord willing, that was edifying. I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Send double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutation to all you Akim out there pushing the word in sincerity and truth. Shalom.